Hey YouTube, it's your girl Queen Genius again. Today we're going to do oven baked ribs. I know oven baked is kind of like way taboo, but it's too cold outside and it's raining, and this is the best option for me. First, I want to show you, I have just some regular pork spare ribs, and what I've done was kind of pre-cut them a little bit to make them a little bit easier to tear apart later. And most ribs come with a little bit of silver skin or skin on the back. What I did was pierce the back and I pulled it off. That way it makes it so the ribs are a little bit more tender, especially since I'm doing them in the oven. And again, I pre-cut them slightly, and that also to help get the seasonings in as well, and to help it cook a little bit faster. And then we have the tip ends. Those are just kind of leave how they are. Next, we're going to season them very well. I have a mixture of spices. I don't know if you can kind of see. We've got a little bit of Goya, some rib rub, black pepper, a little paprika, a little bit of smoked apple seasoning. I use this because I'm not putting it on the grill. It kind of gives that little grill taste. And a little bit of garlic powder. I didn't add any salt because of the smoked maple, and the rib rub is a little bit salty. And I also added a little bit of Sazon. And I've got everything mixed up in here. And we're going to give it all I've got. We're going to sprinkle it very liberally. And you want to cover it and you want to save a little bit because I'm also making barbecue sauce, and I'm making some vegetables on the side, and I want to add the same seasoning that's on the meat into the vegetables. So what you want to do is you want to massage it in the meat just a little bit. Excuse my children in the background. You want to massage it in just a little bit to kind of get the seasonings seeping in. And what we're going to do is we're going to let this sit, and you want to let it sit for about 20 minutes to a half an hour. While this is sitting, we're going to start on the base for our homemade macaroni and cheese. Okay? Now we're going to take care of the barbecue sauce. I know it's kind of hard to see, and you guys already know I don't do anything straight out of the bottle. So in here we have a honey mesquite based barbecue sauce. We're going to take 2 teaspoons of our spice mixture, and we're going to set this off to the side. And we're going to add a touch of lemon juice. You want to add about 5 or 6 tablespoons. It may seem like a lot, but trust me, with the amount of seasoning and spice in there, it's going to work out fine. And you want to add about 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. At this point, if you like it spicy, you can add hot sauce. You can add chili pepper flakes. You can add whole chilies. You can add whichever spice you like, or you can leave it like this. I try not to keep it too spicy for my kids and my husband, but if you want to kick the spice level up just a little bit, just add maybe 2 tablespoons of hot sauce and a tablespoon of red pepper flakes if that's what you're going to use for your heat. And you just want to stir this up, let it come to a boil, and you want to cut it off. You don't want to cook it too much. You don't want to get that burnt flavor, because you're also going to bake this on top of the ribs once the ribs are 3/4 of the way done. Okay? In this pot, I'm starting the base for my homemade macaroni. I've got 6 tablespoons of butter and equal parts flour, and I let it cook down just a little bit to kind of cook out the flour taste. In my measuring cup here, I've got about 2.5 cups of milk. You can use whole milk, 2%, 1%. We drink 1%, so that's what I'm using today. And you want to slowly add the milk in, and you want to make sure you want to try to keep the lumps out. You see it's starting to thicken already. You don't want to add the milk all at once because you will end up with lumps. You want to do this very slow. Right now, I did add a little bit of salt in for seasoning, but not a lot. We want to just keep this going. And you want to have it a little loose at first because of the flour in there, it's going to thicken the longer it cooks. So like I said, I have about 2.5 cups of milk to the 6 tablespoons or 6 teaspoons of 6 tablespoons. I'm sorry, 6 tablespoons of flour and 6 tablespoons of butter. And like I said, 2.5 cups of milk. So as you can see right now, it's very loose, which is fine. Don't panic. Don't add any more flour because it will be very pasty and gritty if you add more flour at this point. You want to let this come to a low boil. And once it starts to boil, it'll start to thicken up. And it'll thicken up to the consistency that you're looking for. Once it gets thickened, we're going to add our cheese to it to make our cheese sauce. And you can also add to this, which I'm going to do right now actually, a teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce. And again, if you want, you can add a dash of hot sauce if you like it spicy again. And you just want to let this cook and make sure you keep an eye on this and keep stirring about every 2 to 3 minutes because it will start to stick at the bottom once the flour starts to thicken. So as you can see, my milk and flour mixture has thickened, and you kind of want it to, you burn your finger across and it holds. It's perfect. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some shredded cheese. I have an 8-ounce package, and I want to add about half of this. And as you can see, I'm doing this off the heat because that mixture is pretty hot right now. But you want to kind of mix it pretty well to incorporate the cheese. And we like it very cheesy in my house. And you can also use low sodium cheese if you're worried about the salt. We're going to add the whole 8 ounces. You want to start this off the heat. And what we're going to do is we're going to quickly transfer this. My lovely husband is helping. To the stove. And you don't want this to come to a boil. You just want to get it back up to temperature because, of course, whenever you add cold ingredients to a hot mixture, it kind of cools it down. So you want to stir, stir, stir. And actually, I'm going to kind of wipe this off a little bit, and I want to switch back to my whisk, which helps, which is a lot easier once you get it back on the stove. And as you can see, it's starting to come together. And you want to let this sit. Like I said, you don't want it to boil. You just want it to heat up just a little bit. I'm going to let that start to melt. I'm going to leave that on a medium heat. While that's working, I'm going to come back over here. And I have a small pan. Any size pan. You can use a foil pan or whatever you choose. I took half a box of pasta, and I cooked it al dente. As you can see, it's got a little bit of give to it. You don't want it soggy because you're going to cook it some more in the oven. And what I have here, I know more cheese, is a block of cheddar that I have cubed up. Again, this is an 8-ounce block. I'm going to spread this around. This is why I wear gloves, because I'm a very hands-on person. And you kind of just want to mix this in just a little bit. And you want those big chunks, and trust me, once it starts to cook, they're going to melt, and they're going to melt into the pasta. They're not going to stay these huge globs of cheese, which I think my husband and my daughter would not mind. So we're going to come back to the pot here. You see you've got a little bit of a bubble forming on the cheese sauce. And we're going to give it a quick stir. And see how quickly that changed. It went from that white color and then that choppy yellow from when we first added the cheese to a velvety, I say orange color, and it's nice and smooth, no lumps. And at this point, we're going to take it from the stove, and let me turn it this way so you can see. And we're going to pour this straight over. I'm sorry, I dropped the noodle, a raw noodle, in the sauce earlier. You guys weren't supposed to see that, but we're going to pour the sauce in. Let's set that down. And we're going to give this a little bit of a zhuzh. You want to kind of mix it up a little bit. And yes, it does look thick, but because of the butter and flour that was added to make our cheese sauce, this is going to thin out once it goes in the oven. I'm gonna get rid of that. And you want to give it a nice stir. You're going to get a nice even coat. By the way, while the cheese sauce was cooking and the noodles were cooking, I actually placed the ribs in the oven at 350. They've been cooking about 20 minutes now. And also in the water for the noodles, I put a little bit of salt, only because that's the only time that you're really going to be able to introduce any salt into the actual noodle. Although that, the cheese sauce is quite cheesy, and of course it has a lot of salt, you still want to season every stage because it's in that boiling water. That's a good time for it to soak up any flavor. And as you can already see, the cheese chunks are starting to melt because that cheese sauce is pretty hot. Normally, I would add more cheese on top. Yes, more cheese. But I think today I'm going to leave it like this. You just want to make an even coating. At this point, everything is done. Like I said, the noodles are cooked, but because we already cooked them al dente, we want to put this in the oven, I would say about 10 minutes covered, just to create that steam to help finish cooking the pasta. And then we want to, the last 10 minutes, another 10 minutes, take the cover off, have it at the top of your oven closest to the top, and you want to brown the top. So you're talking 20, maybe 25 minutes total. You'll know when it's ready by looking at it. So we've got this all nice and done, and I'm just going to cover it up and place it in the oven. Toodles. I've let the ribs cook for about 2 hours. For the first hour, I left it an hour and a half. I left it covered, cooked it at 350. For the last half an hour, I turned it up to 375, and I took the foil off to get a little bit of color. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to brush it with the barbecue sauce. And you can add as much or as little as you like. I don't really like a ton of sauce, but I know my husband does, so yeah. I'm going to actually liberally coat these. And at this point, you do want to put a lot of sauce because you want to create that seal, because you're going to, at this point, crank that heat back up, because you want to now give the sauce a little bit of caramelization. And again, you want to go pretty heavy on the sauce, kind of like you're painting on an easel. You know, when you give your kids that finger paint and it gets everywhere, you want it to look like that a little bit. Like I said, you want to get a good amount, especially on these smaller pieces, the ones that don't have the really big bone. You want to kind of get those coated very well. You want to get them on all sides. Now, normally I would stop like this. I'm waiting to see if I can get the heads up from my husband if he wants me to keep going.
What?
Okay, that was a yes. So you just put a little bit more.
Oh, you meant like with the
Sauce.
Oh no, you good.
Okay, and we're going to put this back in the oven. But before I do that, I want to show you, I've also taken out my macaroni and cheese that's been in there for about 45 minutes. And I left it with the cover on. And remember what I told you? It looked kind of thick before. As you can see, those cheese curds have melted. They've kind of dispersed into the noodles. Now we're going to put this back in the oven with the noodles. We're going to crank the oven back up to 400. We're going to let this brown and the sauce stick in. Okay? Okay guys, here it is, the finished product. And you also see my green beans on the side. And they've taken on the color of the sazon because I used the leftover seasoning from the meat and added it to my green beans during the cooking time. And those are just regular canned beans. Normally I would make fresh, but to save a little bit of time I did buy the canned kind, but you know, I added my own little touch to it. But here you have it, my oven baked ribs that are tender and pullable. I don't know if you can see that it kind of pulls apart a little bit. And there you have it. Peace and blessings. And as always, thank you for watching. For all you gamers, check out Kid Genius, KIDDJEANYUS. And all you makeup artists, Lady Cmo1, LADYSEEMO, and the number 1. Peace.